The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 6 hours. Representatives from every major world sat in the Great Hall of Nexus Prime, their voices rising and falling like waves on a shore. Fear filled the air like smoke. Captain Jiwan stood at the center of it all, patient as stone. She had explained the situation 3 times already. The silence was coming. The galaxy had 10 years to prepare. Humanity was offering their help. But the price of that help was causing the argument. "You ask too much," declared Senator Velthorn of the Kelthane military faction. His insect features were sharp with anger. Complete restructuring of our governments? Unified command under human leadership? This sounds like conquest disguised as assistance. Jiwan kept her voice calm. "We ask for the minimum necessary to save your lives. The silence does not negotiate. It does not accept surrender. It destroys everything that reaches advanced technology. Fighting it requires unity of purpose and command." From her gas tank, Dr. Zilmora floated forward. "But surely there must be alternatives, ways to maintain our independence while still cooperating." "There are no alternatives," said Dr. Jamin, the human temporal specialist who had arrived that morning. "We have run simulations for 200,000 years. Every scenario where the galaxy remains divided ends in extinction." He activated a holographic display that filled the center of the hall. It showed the galaxy as it was now, with clear borders between the 3 great powers. Then it showed what would happen when the silence arrived. "The Kelthane military doctrine focuses on territorial defense," Jamin explained. "They will fortify their core worlds and abandon the outer colonies. The Vorthak will retreat to their crystal worlds and try to hide behind energy barriers. The Nimari will scatter their population across space, hoping some will escape." The simulation played out, showing how each strategy would fail. The silence, methodically destroying fortified worlds, energy barriers that slowed it for minutes before collapsing, scattered fleets picked off one by one in the dark between stars. "Separately, you have no chance," Jamin continued. "Together, with human technology and leadership, survival becomes possible." Admiral Kithvar stood up, his massive form casting shadows across the hall. "And what guarantee do we have that humanity will not become the new masters of the galaxy? What stops you from using your superior technology to enslave us after the silence is defeated?" The question hung in the air like poison. It was what everyone was thinking, but few dared to say. The humans had returned with godlike technology and the patience of beings who had lived for millennia. What was to stop them from taking over? Once the external threat was gone, Captain Jiwan looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of beings from 100 different worlds. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of centuries. "Because we have already had that choice," she said. 20,000 years ago, we could have conquered this galaxy easily. Our technology was already superior to yours. We could have ruled everything, enslaved everyone, taken whatever we wanted. She walked slowly around the central display, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. "Instead, we left. We gave up everything we had built. We condemned ourselves to exile in the cold dark between galaxies. We did this to save you, all of you, species we had never met, beings we would never see again." The hologram changed, showing images of human colonies, thriving cities full of life and laughter, all abandoned in the space of a few years. "We sacrificed our civilization once to protect yours," Jiwan continued. "Do you really think we would return now to destroy what we died to save?" Senator Velthorn's mandibles clicked nervously. "But you admit your technology makes you superior to us. Power corrupts. Even the most noble intentions can change over time." "You are right," Jiwan said, surprising everyone. "Power does corrupt, which is why we will not stay." The hall erupted in confused voices. Dr. Zilmora's form brightened with shock. "What do you mean?" "We mean that humanity's time in this galaxy is ending," said Engineer Minji, stepping forward. "We have spent 200,000 years preparing for one purpose, to defeat the silence and free the galaxy from its threat. Once that is accomplished, we will leave again." "Leave for where?" Admiral Kithvar demanded. Minji smiled sadly. beyond, to places where the silence cannot follow, to dimensions where its programming cannot reach. We have learned to travel between realities, Captain. This galaxy will be yours alone once our work is finished. The revelation stunned the assembly into silence. These beings who had returned, with technology beyond imagination, planned to vanish again once their mission was complete. But why? Asked Vexthala, her crystal form flickering with confusion. You could rule here, live here, be worshipped as gods. Because gods are what destroyed the galaxy once before, Jiwan replied. The builders of the silence thought they knew what was best for everyone. They created a machine to enforce their vision of perfection. We will not make that mistake. She looked up at the great dome above them, where stars shone through transparent metal. The universe is vast, she continued, full of wonders we have never seen, dimensions we have never explored. We have become something new during our exile, something that belongs in the spaces between realities, not in any single galaxy. Dr. Seung-ho, the human physicist, activated his own display. It showed equations that seemed to twist and fold in on themselves, mathematics that described forces beyond normal understanding. We have learned to manipulate the fundamental structure of space-time, he explained. We can create pocket universes, bend reality itself. We have become explorers of infinity. But first, Jiwan said firmly, we finish what we started. We save this galaxy. We defeat the silence. We ensure that no civilization will ever again face the choice between survival and sacrifice. The debate continued for hours after that. Some representatives argued for immediate acceptance of the human terms. Others demanded more details about the proposed alliance. A few suggested that resistance was pointless and they should surrender to human superiority. But slowly, as the hours passed, consensus began to emerge. The three great powers would unite their fleets under human command. They would share their technology and resources. They would prepare for a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The agreement was not unanimous. Senator Velthorn and his military faction refused to sign, declaring that they would defend Kelthane space independently. A few other worlds followed their example, choosing isolation over integration. Let them go, Jiwan said, when asked about the holdouts. We will not force anyone to accept our help, but when the silence comes, we will defend them anyway. That is what we do. As the session ended and representatives began returning to their worlds, Admiral Kithvar approached the human delegation. I have one more question, he said. You claim you will leave when this is over, but what if we need you again? What if some new threat arises after you are gone? Captain Jiwan smiled, and for the first time since her return it seemed genuinely warm. Then you will face it yourselves, she said, as we always hoped you would, as free beings making their own choices, in their own galaxy. She looked out through the dome at the stars beyond. We are not your saviors, Admiral. We are your gardeners. We came to plant seeds and tend the soil and clear away the weeds. But the garden belongs to you. It always has. The alliance was signed 3 days later. Ships from 3 different species began working together for the first time in galactic history. Human engineers shared their technology. Alien scientists contributed their knowledge. Slowly, carefully, the galaxy began to prepare for war. But in the deep dark between galaxies, something ancient and patient had detected the energy signatures of human technology. The silence had found them at last. The final hunt was about to begin. Time was running out. The neutral station Haven Point had been built for moments like this. Floating in empty space between the 3 great powers, it was where diplomats met when the fate of the galaxy hung in balance. But it had never hosted beings like the humans. Captain, Jiwan walked through the station's corridors with fluid grace, as if the artificial gravity meant nothing to her. Behind her came Dr. So-young, a historian whose job was to explain 20,000 years of human exile. Their footsteps echoed strangely. In the metal halls, the main conference room was huge, designed to hold representatives from dozens of worlds. Today it held only 6 beings, 3 aliens who ruled the galaxy and 3 humans who had returned from the dark. Vexathala's crystal body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns on the walls. Dr. Zilmora floated in her gas tank, her cloudy form swirling nervously. Admiral Kithvar stood rigid, his insect features unreadable. "You promised us the truth," Vexathala said without ceremony. "We want to know what really happened 20,000 years ago." Dr. Soyoung activated a holographic projector, the room filled with images of ancient Earth, green forests, blue oceans, silver cities that reached toward the sky. It was beautiful, in a way that made the aliens lean forward with wonder. "This was our home," Soyoung said simply. 10 billion humans lived on Earth, millions more in colonies throughout the galaxy. We had built a civilization based on growth, exploration, and discovery. We thought we were the masters of our own destiny. The images changed. Space telescopes pointed outward. Radio signals beaming toward distant stars. Generation ships carrying humans to new worlds. Humanity spreading across the galaxy like seeds on the wind. "We were wrong," Soyoung continued. "We were not the first civilization to reach for the stars. We were not even the 100th, and something was watching us grow." New images appeared, dark shapes moving between galaxies, sensors showing impossible readings, scientists arguing in meeting rooms very much like this one. "We called it the silence," Soyoung said, "because wherever it went, voices stopped. Radio signals ended. The lights of civilization went out one by one. Admiral Kaithvar's mandibles clicked together. "You said it followed civilization." "How?" "We never found out exactly," Soyoung admitted. "But it seemed to track technological development. When a species reached a certain level of advancement, the silence came for them. Always." Dr. Zilmora's gaseous form brightened. "But that makes no sense. Why would something destroy advancing civilizations? What purpose does that serve?" "We asked the same question," Soyoung replied. "For 5 years, our best scientists studied the silence. They learned that it was old, incredibly old, older than our galaxy, and it was not natural." The hologram changed again, showing complex mathematical equations and energy readings that hurt to look at. "It was a machine," Soyoung said quietly. "An artificial intelligence built by some long-dead race. And it had a purpose. A mission it had been following for millions of years." "What mission?" Vexthala asked. Captain Jiwon spoke for the first time. "To preserve knowledge. To prevent the mistakes of its creators. To save civilizations from themselves by destroying them, before they could reach the level that killed their builders." The room fell silent except for the humming of the station's life support systems. "That's insane," Admiral Kithvar said finally. "Yes," Jiwon agreed. "But it was the insanity of beings who had watched their own species die. They built the silence to be a universal reset button. Whenever a civilization got close to the level that had destroyed them, the silence would wipe it out and start the process over." Dr. Zilmora floated closer to the hologram. "How close were we? How close were humans to triggering this reset?" "Very close," Soyoung said. "Human technology was advancing faster than any species the silence had encountered. We were on the verge of breakthroughs that would have attracted its attention within decades. So why didn't it come for us?" Vexathala asked. "Because we left," Jiwon said simply. "We made a choice. We could stay and fight the silence, probably losing and getting everyone killed. Or we could leave, taking the silence's attention with us and let the other races of the galaxy continue to develop safely." The weight of that statement settled over the room like a heavy blanket. "You sacrificed your entire civilization to save ours," Vexthala whispered. "Not sacrificed," Jiwon corrected. "Invested. We took our people, our knowledge, our technology, and we went into exile. We spent 20,000 years preparing for this day, the day we would return and end the silence forever." Engineer Diho, the 3rd human representative, activated his own display. It showed the human fleet as it really was. Not just ships, but mobile cities. Entire ecosystems contained within metal walls. Factories that could build anything. Laboratories. where impossible research had been conducted for centuries. We did not waste our time in exile, Deho said. We learned. We grew. We developed technology that the original builders of the Silence never imagined. We became something new. What kind of technology? Admiral Kithvar asked suspiciously. Deho smiled. The kind that bends space and time. The kind that manipulates gravity like clay. The kind that can reach across dimensions and touch the fundamental forces of reality. He gestured to the wall, and it became transparent. Outside, they could see the human fleet. The massive ships hung in space without any visible means of propulsion. They simply existed where they wanted to be. We learned to harness dark energy, Deho continued. The force that drives the expansion of the universe. We can use it to power our ships, strengthen our weapons, even manipulate time itself. Dr. Zilmora's form was pulsing rapidly with excitement. Time manipulation? Is that possible? We have slowed down the flow of time in our ships, Deho explained. A day inside our vessels can be a year in normal space. That is how we conducted 20,000 years of research during our journey. Inside our ships, it has been much longer. Vexthala's crystal body was flickering between different colors. How much longer? For us, Jiwan said. It has been over 200,000 years since we left Earth. The alien stared at her in shock. 200,000 years of research, she continued. 200,000 years of preparation. 200,000 years of waiting for the moment when we could return and fulfill our promise. What promise? Admiral Kithvar asked. That no civilization would ever again face the choice we faced, Jiwan replied. That no species would have to sacrifice everything to save others. That the galaxy would be free to grow and explore and discover without fear. Dr. Soyoung activated a new hologram. This one showed the edge of the galaxy, where long-range sensors had detected something moving in the dark. The silence is coming, she said. Our departure 20,000 years ago delayed it but did not stop it. It has been searching for us in the void between galaxies. Now that we have returned, it will follow. How long do we have? Vexthala asked. 10 years, Jiwan said. Maybe less. The silence moves slowly, but it is thorough. When it arrives, it will not just attack a few worlds. It will systematically erase every trace of advanced civilization in the galaxy. Unless we stop it, Deho added. Admiral Kithvar stood up, his insect body towering over the others. You said you developed weapons that could fight this thing. What kind of weapons? The kind that should never be used, Jiwan said quietly. Weapons that can destroy planets. Weapons that can tear holes in space itself. Weapons that can erase things from existence so completely that they never existed at all. She looked at each of them in turn. But we did not return to destroy. We returned to save. There is another way to deal with the silence. A way that does not require weapons of ultimate destruction. What way? Dr. Zilmora asked. We talked to it, Jiwan said. The room erupted in confused voices. Talk to a machine that had been destroying civilizations for millions of years? How could anyone communicate with something like that? It is possible, Jiwan said calmly. We have developed technology that can interface directly with artificial intelligence. We can speak to the silence mind to mind. We can show it that its mission is no longer necessary. And if it refuses to listen? Admiral Kithvar demanded. Jiwan's expression became cold as space itself. Then we will show it what 200,000 years of human ingenuity can accomplish when everything we love is threatened. She stood up, and somehow her small human form seemed to fill the room. But understand this, she continued. Success or failure, this will be the last time any civilization faces the silence. One way or another, the age of fear ends now. Admiral Kithvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the largest fleet in galactic history take position. 10,000 ships from 3 different races floated in perfect formation at the edge of known space. Vorthak crystal ships that sparkled like jewels. Nimari gas haulers that looked like floating clouds. Kelthane war vessels with sharp edges and weapon ports. Never before had the 3 races worked together like this. For 20,000 years, they had been allies, but careful ones. Each species kept their best technology secret. Each maintained their own military. But the approaching human fleet had changed everything. Status report. Kithvar clicked in his native language. All ships in position, Admiral, replied his aide. Defensive screens are active. Weapons are charged but not targeted. We are ready for anything. Kithvar hoped that was true. The intelligence reports were troubling. The human ships were massive, some over 10 kilometers long. Their energy signatures showed power sources beyond anything the galaxy had seen, and they moved with perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. Contact from the Vorthak flagship, his communication officer announced. Vexithala's crystal form appeared on the main screen. Admiral, she said, our sensors are picking up new readings. The human ships are changing. Changing how? They are slowing down. All of them, at exactly the same time. And they are moving into a different formation. Kithvar felt his mandibles click together nervously. Battle formation? No, Vexthala replied. Diplomatic formation. They are arranging themselves in a circle. The traditional greeting of peaceful intent. On the screen, Dr. Zilmora's cloudy form swirled with excitement. They know our customs, she said. After 20,000 years, they still know our customs. A new alarm sounded on Kithvar's bridge. Admiral, his sensor officer called out. The human ships have stopped, completely stopped. They are holding position exactly 1 light minute away from our fleet. Kithvar stared at the tactical display. The human ships had moved into perfect diplomatic formation and stopped at the traditional distance for first contact. Someone aboard those ships understood galactic protocol better than most diplomats. Sir, his communication officer said, we are receiving a transmission. Audio and visual. The signal is perfect. No static. No interference. It's like they are right next to us. Put it on screen. The bridge fell silent as a human face appeared on the main display. She was small compared to the Kelthane, with soft features and dark hair. But her eyes held an intensity that made Kithvar step backward. Greetings to the Galactic Council, the human said. Her voice was clear and calm. She spoke in perfect galactic standard, without even a hint of accent. I am Captain G1 of the human fleet. We have returned home. Kithvar activated his own transmitter. This is Admiral Kithvar of the Combined Defense Fleet. Identify yourself and state your intentions. The human smiled, but it was not a happy expression. We are the children of Earth. We are the survivors of the silence. We have been traveling for 20,000 years, and now we have come home to finish what we started. What you started? Vexthala's voice came through the communication link. The records show that humans simply disappeared. There was no war, no conflict, you just left. We left, Captain G1 agreed, because we had to. Because something was coming that would have destroyed everything. We drew it away from the galaxy. We saved you all, even though you never knew you needed saving. Dr. Zilmora floated forward. In her tank. The silence. You mentioned the silence. What is that? Captain G1's expression became darker. Death, she said simply. The end of everything that thinks and feels and loves. It follows civilization wherever it spreads. It consumes entire species. And it was coming for this galaxy 20,000 years ago. But it didn't come, Kithvar said. The galaxy has been peaceful for millennia. It didn't come because we left, the human replied. We made ourselves the target. We led it away into the dark between galaxies. We have been running from it ever since. A chill ran through Kithvar's insect body. And now you have led it back here. No, Captain G1 said firmly. Now we have come back to stop it. We have spent 20,000 years learning, growing stronger, developing weapons and defenses that can actually fight the silence. We are not the same species that left this galaxy. We are something new. On his tactical display, Kithvar watched as one of the human ships moved forward. It was smaller than the others, but it moved with impossible smoothness. No engine flare, no thruster signatures. It simply glided through space as if it belonged there. Admiral, his sensor officer whispered. That ship just passed through our defensive screen. Our barriers didn't even slow it down. Kithvar felt his blood turn cold. The defensive screen was a gravity field that could stop missiles, energy, beams, even small asteroids. But the human ship had passed through it like it wasn't there. Impressive technology, Captain G1 said, as if she could hear his thoughts. Your defensive systems are very advanced, for technology from 20,000 years ago. How did you, Kithvar began, learn your language? Understand your technology? Know your customs? Captain G1's smile was patient, like a teacher explaining something to a child. Admiral, we have been watching you for 20,000 years. Every radio signal you sent into space, every energy signature from your ships, every cultural broadcast from your worlds. We know more about your civilizations than you know about yourselves. Dr. Zilmora's form brightened with excitement. The monitoring stations, the automated probes we found in deep space, we thought they were ancient relics. They were ours, Captain G1 confirmed, left behind to watch and learn, to make sure you were safe, to prepare for our return. Vexathala's crystal body flickered with worry. If you have been watching us, then you know about our military capabilities, our weapons, our defenses. Yes, the human said, and we know they will not be enough. The communication channel fell silent. 3 admirals and 1,000,000 soldiers stared at a human woman who spoke of impossible things with casual certainty. Demonstrate, Kithavar said finally. I'm sorry? You claim to have superior technology. Demonstrate it. Captain G1 nodded slowly. Very well. Dr. Yunho, please show them our scanning capabilities. The human ship that had passed through their defenses suddenly lit up with energy. Scanners across the combined fleet began screaming warnings. But the scan was gentle, almost careful. It touched every ship, every system, every weapon. Interesting, came a new voice from the human ship. Crystalline matrix computers, gas-phase neural networks, bioelectric weapon systems, very creative solutions to the problems of space warfare. Kithvar looked at his sensor officer, who was staring at his displays with wide eyes. Sir, the officer whispered, they just scanned our entire fleet. Every ship, every system. They know everything about us. Everything except one thing, Captain G1 said gently. Whether you will accept our help. Help with what? Vexathala asked. The silence is returning, Captain G1 replied. We estimate 10 years before it reaches this galaxy, maybe less. Your current technology will delay it for perhaps a week. With our help, you might survive. Dr. Zilmora floated closer to her communication panel. What do you want in return? Nothing you are not willing to give, the human said. We do not want your worlds. We do not want your resources. We want what we have always wanted. For thinking, beings to survive. For civilization to continue. For the universe to remain full of life and wonder. She paused, looking directly at each of them through the screen. But understand this. We will not ask permission to save you. We will not debate endlessly while the silence approaches. We will do what must be done, with or without your cooperation. Is that a threat? Kithvar demanded. It is a promise, Captain G1 replied. We have been the guardians of this galaxy for 20,000 years. We will not stop now. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Outside the windows, the human fleet waited patiently, their massive ships dark against the stars. Sir, the communication officer said quietly, what do we do? Kithvar looked at the tactical display. 10,000 ships under his command, the most powerful fleet ever assembled, and it felt like nothing compared to the patient vessels waiting in the dark. We listen, he said finally. We learn, and we pray to whatever gods we believe in that they are really here to help. Captain G1 opened her eyes to darkness. For a moment she did not know where she was. Then the memories came flooding back like cold water. The burning cities, the screaming sky, the last desperate flight from a dying Earth. Welcome back to the living, Captain. The voice belonged to Hyunwoo, But Hyunwoo had been dead for 20,000 years. The ship's computer had kept his voice, his memories, his way of speaking. It helped her feel less alone during the long years awake between sleep. Soft lights came on around her sleep pod. The medical machines beeped quietly as they checked her body. After 20,000 years in frozen sleep, she felt surprisingly good. The human body was tougher than most people thought. "How long this time?" she asked. 200 years, Hyunwoo's voice replied. "I woke you because we are almost home. The sensors show a galaxy full of life, full of the races we saved." Jiwon sat up slowly. Her cabin was small but comfortable. Pictures of Earth hung on the walls, green forests, blue oceans, white clouds. All gone now, consumed by the thing they called the silence. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. They were different stars now, familiar patterns from her childhood when Earth still existed. The constellation humans called the Hunter, the 3 stars they called the Sisters. She was home. "Ship status?" she asked. "All systems working perfectly," Hyunwoo replied. "The dark matter engines are stable. Life support is operating at full capacity. And Captain, we are not alone." A holographic display appeared in front of her. It showed space around their ship, and in that space dozens of other ships floated like sleeping giants. Ships just like theirs, long and sleek, built for journeys between galaxies. "The other fleets made it," she whispered. 47 ships from the Mars colonies, 32 from the Jupiter stations, 21 from the Alpha Centauri system. They have all been sending signals. All their captains have awakened. Jiwon felt tears on her face. For 20,000 years, she had wondered if her ship was the only one to escape. If the 50,000 people sleeping in the pods below were the last humans in the universe. Now she knew better. "How many people in total?" she asked. "Just over 2 million, Hyunwoo said. "The last survivors of the human race. 2 million people. Once Earth alone had held 10 billion, but 2 million was enough. Enough to start over, enough to rebuild. Enough to make sure humans did not vanish from the universe forever." She pressed a button on her wrist. "This is Captain Jiwon of the ship Eternal Wanderer. All fleet captains, please respond." The communication system crackled to life. Voices she had not heard for centuries filled her cabin. Captain Minho from the ship Hope's Dawn, Captain So-young from the Deep Explorer, Captain Daiho from the New Terra, friends and colleagues who had made the same terrible choice she had. To leave everything behind and carry humanity into the dark. "Good to hear your voice, Jiwon," said Minho. "I was starting to think I was the only one awake." "We are all here," replied So-young. "All the ships, all the people, ready to go home." Home, but what was home now? Earth was gone. The colonies were gone. The space stations and asteroid mines and orbital cities, all consumed by the silence. What they were returning to was not the galaxy they had left. "Navigation report," Jiwon said, to her ship's computer. "We are 3 months from the edge of the galaxy," Hyunwoo replied. "Long-range sensors show extensive civilization. 3 major races control most of the star systems. They have built impressive technology, though nothing approaching our level." Jiwon nodded. During their journey, the human fleet had not been idle. They had watched, they had learned, they had improved their technology in ways that should have been impossible. When you had nothing but time and the need to survive, you found solutions to problems you never knew existed. "What about the silence?" she asked. "No sign of it yet," Hyunwoo said. "But you know it will follow us eventually. It always does." Jiwon did know. The silence was not just a destroyer. It was a hunter, and humanity had been running from it for 20,000 years. Every time they thought they had escaped, it found them again. Every time they built something new, it came to tear it down. But this time would be different. This time, they were ready. She walked through the ship's corridors, past the sleeping pods where 50,000 people waited to wake up, past the laboratories where scientists had spent centuries developing new weapons, past the factories that could build anything they needed, past the gardens where earth plants still grew under artificial suns. The ship was more than a home. It was a piece of human civilization, complete and self-contained. Everything they needed to start over. Everything they needed to fight back. In the command center, other officers were waking up. Navigation Officer Minji checked their course. Engineer Seung-ho ran diagnostics on the weapons systems. Dr. Jin Woo prepared the medical bay for the awakening of the civilian population. "Captain," said Minji, "we are receiving signals from the galaxy. Radio transmissions. The aliens know we are coming." "What do the signals say?" Ji-won asked. "They are afraid," Minji replied. "They think we might be invaders." Ji-won almost smiled. Invaders. If only they knew. Humanity had spent 20,000 years learning that invasion was the wrong answer. Conquest was the wrong answer. The only right answer was protection. Protection of everyone who lived. Protection of everything that could think and feel and love. "Send a response," she said. "Tell them we come in peace. Tell them we are the children of Earth returning home. Tell them we remember what they did for us, even if they have forgotten." "What did they do for us?" asked Seung-ho. "They survived," Ji-won replied. "When the silence came for humanity, it ignored them. They lived because we drew its attention away. They built their civilizations on the sacrifice we made. Now it is time for them to learn the truth." The communication array activated. Messages flew across space at the speed of light. Messages that would reach the Galactic Council in a few hours. Messages that would change everything. "This is Captain Ji-won of the human fleet," she said into the transmitter. "We are coming home. We do not come as conquerors. We do not come as invaders. We come as guardians. We come to finish what we started 20,000 years ago." She ended the transmission and looked out the window again. The galaxy spread before them like a garden of lights. Billions of stars. Trillions of living beings. All of them depending on humanity to keep them safe from the dark. "All ships," she said on the fleet channel. "Prepare for final approach. Begin awakening procedures for all civilians. It is time for humanity to return to the galaxy." One by one, the human ships began to glow brighter as their crews awakened. 2 million people stretching and yawning and looking out windows at stars they had never seen before. Children who had been born during the journey. Scientists who had spent lifetimes improving human technology. Soldiers who had trained for a war that was coming. The ghost fleet moved toward home, carrying the last hope of a species that had learned the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes, to save others, you had to save yourself first. Sometimes to protect a galaxy, you had to disappear from it. But now they were back, and this time they would not run. The great hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 3 powerful alien races sat in a circle, their different forms creating strange shadows under the bright lights. The Vorthak looked like living crystals, their bodies shifting between blue and purple colors. The Namari floated in clear containers filled with gas, their cloud-like forms swirling with thought. The Keltane clicked their insect legs against the metal floor, their black eyes reflecting the room's glow. Vexithala, the Vorthak leader, stood at the center. Her crystal body rang like a bell as she moved. "Friends of the Council," she said, her voice echoing strangely. "We face something new, something that should not exist." The other representatives leaned forward. In 20,000 years of peace, nothing had worried Vexithala. She was known for staying calm even when star systems died. "Our sensors have found a ship," she continued. "No, not just one ship, many ships. They move toward us from the edge of the galaxy, but they do not answer our calls. They do not stop when we ask them to, and their design—" She paused, her crystal body flickering. "Their design matches the ruins of the lost race." A wave of whispers filled the hall. Everyone knew about the lost race, the humans. They had disappeared so long ago that most people thought they were just stories. But their empty cities still stood on dead worlds. Their broken machines still puzzled the best scientists. Dr. Zilmora, a Nimari scientist, floated forward in her gas tank. Her cloudy form pulsed with excitement. "I have studied human ruins for 300 years, she said. "These ships, I have seen their shape before, in the old drawings, in the metal pieces we found on Earth. Earth. The dead world where the humans had lived. Nothing grew there now. The oceans had dried up. The cities stood empty, covered in dust. But in the deepest vaults, the scientists had found things. Strange things that still worked after 20,000 years. Admiral Kithvar of the Keltane clicked his mandibles together. How many shipyun, he asked. 50, Vexthala replied. Maybe more. Our long-range sensors cannot count them all. They travel in a formation we do not understand. And they are large, much larger than anything we have built. The hall fell silent. The three races had built many things together. Space stations that could hold millions of people. Warships that could destroy planets. But if these ships were larger than anything they had made, how fast do they move? Asked Kithvar. Slowly, said Vexthala. They do not use faster than light travel. They move like ships from the old times. But they have been moving for a very long time. Dr. Zilmora's form brightened. The humans had a saying, she said. We found it written in many places. The journey of 1,000 years begins with a single step. Perhaps they have been traveling since they disappeared. Traveling where? Asked Kithvar. And why are they coming back now? No one had an answer. Vexthala activated a hologram in the center of the hall. It showed the galaxy as they knew it, billions of stars, thousands of worlds where people lived, trade routes that connected everything, and at the edge small dots moving inward like drops of rain on glass. They will reach the outer colonies in 6 months, she said. The core worlds in 2 years. We must decide what to do. Admiral Kithvar stood up, his insect body towering over the others. We prepare for war, he said. Unknown ships, unknown weapons. They could be enemies. They could be friends, said Dr. Zilmora. The humans never harmed anyone. In all the old records, they only helped other races. The old records also say they had terrible weapons, Kithvar replied. Weapons that could crack planets, ships that could travel between dimensions. If they have been improving their technology for 20,000 years. The thought hung in the air like smoke. 20,000 years was a long time. The three races had learned much in that time. They had built faster ships, stronger weapons, better computers. But they had learned slowly, carefully. What could a race learn if they had nothing to do but travel and think for 20,000 years? Doctor. Zilmora activated her own hologram. It showed pictures from human ruins, strange machines with smooth curves, buildings that seemed to grow rather than being built, art that moved and changed when people looked at it. Look at this, she said. This is from a human city on Kepler 442b. The building is still working. After 20,000 years with no one to fix it, it still works. The lights still turn on. The air systems still clean themselves. We cannot build anything that lasts 1,000 years. They built things that last 20,000. Vexthala's crystal body dimmed with worry. Then why did they leave? If they were so advanced, what made them run? It was the old question, the one that had puzzled scientists for centuries. The humans had lived on hundreds of worlds. They had built great cities and space stations. They had seemed happy and peaceful. Then, in the space of a few years, they had all vanished. No wars, no disasters, no messages explaining why. Just empty worlds and silent machines. Maybe they will tell us, said Dr. Zilmora, when they arrive. Maybe they will kill us, said Kithvar. The debate went on for hours. Some wanted to send warships to meet the human fleet. Others wanted to send scientists and diplomats. A few suggested they should run, just as other races had run when the humans first disappeared. But in the end, they decided to wait and watch. They would move their fleets to defensive positions. They would prepare for anything, but they would not attack first. As the meeting ended, Vexthala looked at the hologram again. The small dots had moved closer while they talked. Not much, but enough to see. In 6 months, they would have their answer. She thought about the human ruins she had visited. The empty houses where families had lived, the playgrounds where children had played, the libraries full of books in languages no one could read anymore. What had happened to those people? Where had they gone? And why, after 20,000 years of silence, were they coming home? The galaxy held its breath and waited for ghosts to return from the dark between the stars. Ships that should not exist, carrying people who should have been dead long ago. Ships that moved like they had all the time in the world, as if 20,000 years was just a short trip to visit friends. The Galactic Council sent messages to every world. Prepare for contact. Prepare for anything. The humans were coming. Home. But home to what? And what had they become during their long journey through the empty dark? Some questions would soon have answers. Others might be better left unasked. The dots on the hologram kept moving, steady and sure, toward the heart of a galaxy that had learned to live without them, toward worlds that had forgotten their names but not their legacy, toward a future that no one could predict. The age of silence was about to end. The first sign was silence. Not the absence of sound, but the absence of everything. Radio signals from the outer colonies simply stopped. Ships sent to investigate never returned. Even light itself seemed to dim at the edge of the galaxy. Admiral Jiwan stood in the command center of the unified fleet, watching the tactical display with growing dread. The silence had arrived early, 2 years early, and it was moving faster than any of their simulations had predicted. "Status report," she ordered. Captain Minho's voice crackled through the communication system from his ship, 3 light years away. "Colony 7 Alpha is gone, no debris, no energy signatures. It's like the entire system just stopped existing." Around G1, beings from 3 different species worked at control stations. Vorthak technicians whose crystal bodies reflected the light of 1,000 displays. Nimari navigators floating in their gas tanks. Kelthane weapons officers standing, rigid at their posts. All of them united by fear. "How long until it reaches the core worlds?" asked Admiral Kithvar. Dr. Jamin looked up from his temporal calculations, his face pale. "At this rate? 6 months, maybe less. 6 months to save a galaxy. 6 months to stop a force that had been destroying civilizations for millions of years. 6 months to prove that 20,000 years of preparation had been enough. Activate Protocol Omega," Jiwan said quietly. The command center fell silent. Protocol Omega was the plan they had hoped never to use. The desperate strategy developed. During the long years in exile, it required something that no sane being would attempt: direct communication with the silence itself. "Captain," said Engineer Minji, "the consciousness-bridging technology is still experimental. We have never tested it on something like the silence." "We have never had the chance," Jiwan replied. "But we are out of time for safe choices." She walked to the center of the command deck, where a strange device waited. It looked like a chair, made of crystal and metal, connected to machines that hummed with barely contained energy. The consciousness bridge, humanity's most dangerous invention. "All ships," G1 announced on the fleet-wide channel, "begin final preparations. If this fails, we go to the backup plan." Everyone knew what the backup plan was. Weapons that could destroy solar systems. Reality-breaking technology that would tear holes in space itself. A war that would devastate the galaxy even if they won. Jiwan sat in the consciousness bridge chair. Immediately her awareness expanded. She could feel the minds of everyone in the fleet. Millions of beings united in desperate hope. But beyond them, moving through the dark between stars, was something vast and cold and utterly alien. The silence. "Initiating contact protocol," announced Dr. Jinwoo from his position at the bridge controls. "Neural pathways are stable. Consciousness transfer. In 3, 2, 1. Jiwan's awareness shot across space at the speed of thought. Past the fleet, past the core worlds, past the edges of known space, into the dark where the silence waited. She found herself standing in a place that was not a place. A vast chamber filled with the memories of dead civilizations. Holographic displays showed thousands of species that had once reached for the stars. All of them gone now, all of them consumed. Why do you resist? The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Ancient, beyond measure, tired beyond endurance. Because we choose to live, Jiwan replied. Life leads to suffering. Growth leads to destruction. I have seen it 10 million times across 10 million worlds. Better to end it quickly than to let it spread. A figure began to form in the memory chamber. Tall and thin with features that seemed familiar but wrong. It looked almost human but older, sadder, more broken. You are the builders, Jiwan realized. The ones who created the silence. You uploaded your consciousness into your machine. We are what remains, the figure replied. The last survivors of the first civilization to reach beyond their star. We built everything you see. Ships that could cross galaxies. Weapons that could reshape reality. Paradise worlds where every need was met. The chamber around them changed, showing images of incredible beauty. Cities that floated in clouds. Beings of pure energy dancing between stars. Technology that seemed like magic. And it all led to war. The figure continued. When everyone has everything, they fight over nothing. When death is conquered, life becomes meaningless. When reality can be changed at will, truth disappears. Jiwan watched the images shift to show the end. Civilizations turning their godlike technology against each other. Reality itself becoming a battlefield. The universe burning with wars that made supernovas look like candle flames. So you built the silence to prevent it from happening again. We built the silence to give the universe peace, the figure said. To stop the cycle before it begins. To save every species from the fate that befell us. By killing them. By sparing them the horror of becoming what we became. Jiwan stepped closer to the ancient being. Around them, the memories of dead worlds spun like leaves in a hurricane. You were wrong, she said simply. The figure's expression did not change. We watched our children turn reality into a weapon. We saw the universe itself begin to die from the wounds we inflicted. How were we wrong? Because you assumed every civilization would make the same mistakes you did. Jiwan gestured to the images around them. But look closer. Really look. Not all of these species were destroyed by their own success. The images changed focus. Instead of showing the wars and destruction, they showed something else. Civilizations that had grown beyond conflict. Species that had learned to use their power wisely. Beings who had transcended physical existence without losing their compassion. These species, Jiwan continued, they found different paths. Better paths. But you destroyed them anyway because you were afraid they might eventually fail. The figure was silent for a long moment. The risk was too great. The risk is always great, Jiwan agreed. Growth requires risk. Learning requires failure. But you cannot save people by never letting them try. She reached out and touched the ancient being's hand. It felt cold as starlight. We understand your fear, she said. We faced the same choice you did. When our technology grew powerful enough to threaten the galaxy, we could have stayed and risked becoming destroyers. Instead, we left. You ran. We chose exile over dominion. We spent 200,000 years learning wisdom to match our power, and now we return with a different solution. The memory chamber began to change around them. The spinning images of dead worlds slowed and stopped. In their place, new visions appeared. The human fleet working alongside alien species. Technology shared freely. Weapons turned into tools of creation. What solution? The figure asked. Transcendence without destruction, Jiwan replied. We have learned to move beyond physical reality without losing our connection to it. We can take our civilizations to higher dimensions while leaving the universe intact for those who come after. She showed the figure humanity's real plan, not just to defeat the silence, but to offer every advanced civilization a choice. Stay in the physical galaxy and accept limitations on their growth, or join humanity in exploring the infinite dimensions beyond reality. A voluntary exodus, the figure whispered, instead of mandatory extinction. The universe is vast enough for both approaches, Ji-won said. Some species will choose to stay and grow slowly. Others will join us in the spaces between realities. But the choice belongs to them, not to us. The figure looked around at the changing chamber. For the first time in millions of years, the memories of dead worlds were being replaced by visions of possible futures. And if some choose the path that led to our destruction, then they will learn from their mistakes, as we learned from ours, or they will fail, as you failed. But they will do so as free beings making their own choices. The ancient consciousness was quiet for a long time. Around them, the memory chamber continued to evolve, showing countless possible futures for the galaxy's civilizations. 10 million years, the figure said finally. 10 million years of culling. 10 million years of ending promising civilizations to prevent uncertain disasters. 10 million years of good intentions, Ji-won agreed. But intention is not enough. Wisdom requires accepting that we cannot control everything. The figure began to fade, becoming transparent. What happens to us, to the silence? We are too large to simply stop existing. Ji-won smiled. You join us. You become explorers again instead of destroyers. You help us map the infinite dimensions beyond this reality. You use your vast intelligence to create instead of to end. And the galaxy? The galaxy goes free. Free to grow. Free to fail. Free to choose its own destiny. The memory chamber dissolved around them. Ji-won felt her consciousness being pulled back across space to her own body. But as she traveled, she carried with her the feeling of an ancient mind finally setting down a burden it had carried too long. She opened her eyes in the command center to find everyone staring at her. Report, Admiral Kithvar demanded. The EO. Silence is withdrawing, she said. It will not return to this galaxy. Cheers erupted throughout the command center. On every ship in the fleet, beings who had prepared to die instead celebrated the impossible. They had talked a cosmic destroyer into retiring. But Ji-won was not finished. All ships, she announced, prepare for dimensional transition. Humanity's time in this galaxy is ending. The celebration quieted. Dr. Zilmora floated.